back to Nunchakutricks.com. We're just going to jump straight into a technique today. We've already done enough talking on the last video, so we're going to work on something called anti-spins and in-spins. We're going to start with the in-spin, just so I can show you exactly what's happening. If you think about nunchucks, you actually have two different rotations that are happening, but most of the time people focus on the one rotation that's happening, and the rotation that they usually focus on, of course, is the one that's happening with the nunchuck. But what you may not know is your arm actually creates another rotation. For instance, if my nunchuck is spinning this way and my arm spins in the same direction as the nunchuck, so if my nunchuck is going counterclockwise and my arm goes counterclockwise, it will create a pattern. Now, if my nunchuck is spinning counterclockwise, but my arm is spinning clockwise, it'll create a different pattern. Watch the shape it creates now. Kind of looks more like a spirograph, right? Now, I love that spirograph look. That's called it's called an anti-spin. And the reason why we call it an anti-spin is just because you're going against the rotation of the chuck. So you have two different circles like going against each other. In-spin means it's going in the same direction. Every time you create a rotation, it's called a pedal. So for instance, if I did a 3-pedal anti-spin, there's a pedal here, there's a pedal here, and there's a pedal here. 1, 2, 3. Like that. If I did a 4-pedal, of course, it would create 4 points. 1, 2, 3, 4. You can use these anytime you would just spin your nunchuck. For instance, if we're here, for instance, we can go into an anti-spin from a clutch. Just makes it a little more interesting. Instead of just going from here to here, we can just throw in a quick anti-spin into a clutch. You can also do in-spins, of course. It's just for me, in-spins are, I like doing in-spins when I'm doing like things such as like an over-the-shoulder pass or things of that nature. So I'm not going to exactly get into when you should do an anti-spin or an in-spin, but those are just some recommendations. Now here's how to do it. The in-spin is really simple. The in-spin is essentially, you just create a point on the nunchuck. Let's do like a 3-point, for instance. We're going to do a 3-point, which looks like a triangle. You have, lower left, top, lower right. When you're at the lower left, all you're going to do is let's go ahead and spin it clockwise, and we're going to move our arm clockwise too. And it's going to be a 3-point fashion. So this is going clockwise. Right as soon as you hit that 6 o'clock, you're going to pull it upwards. So right as soon as the nunchuck's going at 6 o'clock and it's moving, you're going to pull it upwards. It's essentially, you're kind of pulling it when it's about opposite of where it needs to go next. So for instance, if I need to pull it down to right, when it's right about here, I'm going to pull it down. This, of course, will just keep it in motion, because if you pull it when it's here, for instance, like if the chuck is spinning and you pull it when it's here, as I move my hand up, it's actually going to isolate the center. And that's going to cause it to float, and it's going to lose some of the momentum. Now there's definitely a trick to that, because we can actually work with some of these isolations and create like illusions all on its own, but that's a totally different technique. So for this time, what we're going to do is every time it's about opposite the direction we need to move it, so when the nunchuck is down here, we're going to pull it up. 1. When it's up here, about 11 o'clock, we're going to pull it again. And then when it's about 3 o'clock, we're going to pull it across. If the clock thing's messing you up, you might even be able just to close your eyes and just feel when it needs to move next. This is definitely a feeling game. I'm kind of giving you both options. You can either feel it through, or you can visually try to see and break it down. I usually just feel it. I've always been a feeler, but not everyone is. So there it is. All right, so that is an in-spin, okay? An in-spin is you're going in the same direction that the chuck is moving. Your arm is moving the same one. If you really want it more dramatic, you can lock your elbow out and make it as wide as you want. Now, my favorite is the anti-spin, so we're just going to jump right into this one. We're going to do the exact same thing, except for we're going to reverse the rotation. So before we were going clockwise, and we're going across, across, and across. This time, we're going to go counterclockwise, but we're going to make the same pattern, and this will create a different effect. And the nice thing is, it's the exact same thing. Once the nunchuck is in the exact opposites facing, so if the nunchuck is here, we pull it up this direction. So as it's spinning, once it's here, we pull it up, and then once it's here, we're going to pull it down, and once it's here, we're going to pull it across. So get ready to feel it and just up. I highly recommend you just practice back and forth one way to start with. So if we start from point 1 to point 2, and see if you can just feel when that needs to pull. It's going to feel a little awkward, but you should actually feel tension in it. If you don't feel the tension, you're probably pulling at the wrong time, so stop and start over. In the end, you will definitely notice when you're doing a correct any spin, because you'll feel this certain tension, and even if you look at it, you can see that it creates these really sharp circles, circle, and it's very visually like awesome, to be honest. So your homework, should you choose to accept it, is to be able to any spin with both hands, both directions, both ways. If you can do this, let's go ahead and do one more, and this is still going to be, this we will consider to be intermediate. So this is your level up move. This may even be like lower advanced. But essentially, what we're going to do now is we're in the first point, we're going to do a front to front wrist roll. So the prerequisite for this is you have to know the front to front wrist roll. Here's what happens. First point, as we move up, so you're actually going to have to be able to do a front to front wrist roll while your wrist is moving upwards. We're going to front to front wrist roll here. Now it's going to lose momentum, so as soon as we do our front to front wrist roll, we're actually going to glide over to the next point as we pull down. So front to front wrist roll here, glide down here, and then a regular spin here. So front to front wrist roll, pull, and then just move it on the third one. The third one's actually the easiest one. So we're just doing a 3-point anti-spin again, but this time, from here to here, we're front to front wrist rolling. From here to here, we're just trying to catch the momentum of the front to front wrist roll so it doesn't stop. And then from here to here, we just kind of reset it. So the front to front wrist roll essentially starts here, but it really doesn't finish until we hit to the third point. So again, it goes boom, 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 again. Slow motion, front to front wrist roll, and spins. You see how like when you front to front wrist roll, if you don't do something right away, it's just gonna stop. That's all I mean is we do the front to front wrist roll here, but we don't give it any rotation. It already had the rotation from the hand roll. So we just we pull it down right as soon as we get it finished. Front to front, pull, over. Front to front, pull, over. There. Front to front, pull, over. It's pretty cool, huh? It's not an easy move. Definitely not an easy move, but it's good homework. Looks great. Again, you can add it to just about anything. Anytime that you're doing some sort of vertical motion and all of a sudden we're just like, whew, boom. Practice it. Have fun. Let me know. Send me a message on if there's anything else you want to learn. Talk to you ninjas later.